On January 6, 1994, Nancy Kerrigan walked off the practice ice at Cobo Arena in Detroit and into a corridor where a stranger she had never met struck her across the leg with a metal baton and ran. Television cameras caught the aftermath. Kerrigan on the ground screaming, why, to no one in particular. The attacker vanished into a getaway car. Within days, investigators would trace the plot back to someone shockingly close to home, the inner circle of Kerrigan's own biggest rival for an Olympic spot. In early 1994, American figure skating had exactly 2 realistic contenders for Olympic gold at Lillehammer: Nancy Kerrigan, the polished favorite, and Tonya Harding, the sport's most talented jumper and its most unconventional star. The US Championships in Detroit were the last major event before the Olympic team was finalized, meaning a strong finish that was worth almost everything to both of them. Only 2 women would make the Olympic team that year, and Kerrigan was coming off a strong season while Harding had been inconsistent, meaning Kerrigan entered Detroit as the clearer favorite for one of those 2 spots, with Harding's own Olympic hopes looking shakier than her talent alone would suggest. The 2 skaters were cast almost from the start as opposites by the media covering them. Kerrigan came from a working-class Massachusetts family herself, but was marketed as polished and camera-ready. Harding, raised in a rougher part of Portland, Oregon, competed while openly discussing money troubles, sewed some of her own costumes, and had already built a reputation as skating's most talented outsider. The first American woman to land a triple axel in competition, but never quite embraced by the sport's more image-conscious side. Investigators moved fast, and the trail led directly to Jeff Gillooly, Harding's ex-husband, and Shawn Eckardt, her bodyguard. Neither man swung the baton himself, but both had helped plan exactly who would. Eckardt had no real security credentials, but described himself to acquaintances as a counter-terrorism expert, and it was partly his own bragging about the plan to friends in the days afterward that first put investigators on the trail. He wasn't a criminal mastermind so much as someone who couldn't stop talking about being one. Eckardt hired Stant to carry out the physical attack, and Derrick to drive the getaway car, with the plan funded in part using money tied to Harding's own skating career. The goal was simple and brutal: injure Kerrigan badly enough that she couldn't compete, clearing Harding's path to the Olympic team. Stant struck Kerrigan just above the knee with a collapsible metal baton, then fled through an emergency exit into a waiting car. He later discarded the baton in a dumpster near the arena, where investigators eventually recovered it as physical evidence tying the attack directly back to the conspiracy. The attackers fled Detroit almost immediately after, and for a few days the assault looked like a random, unsolvable act of violence. But a rented getaway car and a trail of phone records connected it back to Gillooly and Eckardt within about a week, and the story shifted from who attacked Nancy Kerrigan to how close to Tonya Harding does this go. The unraveling started with Eckardt himself, who confided details of the plot to acquaintances within days, people who, uneasy with what they'd heard, eventually brought it to the FBI. Investigators didn't need to break a sophisticated criminal network. They mostly needed to follow a trail Eckardt had left by talking too much. Within weeks, the conspiracy began collapsing from the inside, as the men involved started striking plea deals rather than face trial. Within days of the attack, both women were followed by a level of press attention usually reserved for major celebrities rather than figure skaters. Tabloid magazines ran competing cover stories nearly every week, and paparazzi camped outside training rinks for months, turning an already tense Olympic qualifying period into a genuine media circus before a single practice session at Lillehammer had even happened. Eckardt hired Stant to carry out the physical attack, and Derrick to drive the getaway car, with the plan funded in part using money tied to Harding's own skating career. The goal was simple and brutal: injure Kerrigan badly enough that she couldn't compete. Clearing Gillooly's plea deal came with a condition that mattered enormously to prosecutors: his cooperation, including testimony implicating Harding directly in conversations about the plan. His account became one of the central pieces of evidence prosecutors used to build the case against his own ex-wife. Tonya Harding always denied knowing about the specific plan to attack Kerrigan in advance, but in March 1994, she pleaded guilty to a lesser charge: conspiracy to hinder prosecution, admitting that she learned about the plot after the fact and helped cover it up rather than reporting it. Investigators released portions of recorded phone conversations involving Harding and Gillooly discussing the aftermath of the attack, which became some of the most replayed audio in the entire case. Harding's own lawyers maintained throughout that the recordings showed after-the-fact panic and cover-up, not advanced knowledge of the plan to attack Kerrigan in the first place, a distinction the plea deal's specific charge was carefully built around. The sentences followed quickly. Gillooly received 2 years in prison and a $100,000 fine. Eckardt received 18 months. Stant and Smith each received 18 months as well. Harding was sentenced to 3 years of probation, 500 hours of community service, and a $160,000 fine. But she was never criminally charged with planning the attack itself. The scandal turned the Lillehammer Women's Long program into one of the most watched broadcasts in American television history, drawing an audience of over 45 million people, a figure skating ratings record that stood for decades, driven almost entirely by public fascination with the rivalry playing out on ice. The criminal courts weren't the only body to render a verdict. In June 1994, the US Figure Skating Association independently stripped Harding of her national championship title and banned her for life from the organization, a career-ending sanction handed down entirely outside the criminal justice system, based on the association's own findings. Kerrigan herself largely avoided public commentary on Harding's punishment, focusing instead on her own recovery and training, though she later settled a civil lawsuit against Harding, Gillooly, and the others involved, adding a financial resolution to a case the criminal courts had already closed. Remarkably, Nancy Kerrigan recovered in time to compete at Lillehammer just weeks later, winning the silver medal. Tonya Harding also competed, finishing 8th amid a media circus that followed her onto the ice. The case remains one of the most notorious in Olympic history, and it permanently changed how major competitions handle athlete security around practice and competition venues. Harding's own short program at the Olympics became its own small drama. A broken skate lace forced her to stop mid-routine and plead with judges for extra time to fix it, finishing the emotional performance in tears. It's remembered today as one of the most human, chaotic moments in Olympic figure skating history. The story has been retold for new generations ever since, most notably in the 2017 film I, Tonya, which reframed Harding's role with more sympathy toward her difficult upbringing and disputed how much she actually knew, reigniting public debate about her guilt that 3 decades later still hasn't fully settled. The full case file, every plea, every sentence, and what happened at Lillehammer is linked below. If you want to know which scandal we're opening next, subscribe. There's a new file every Tuesday and Friday.